Adam and his dad stood back. The physician worked his art with a scalpel as he sliced in his mother's stomach. It was delicate work that needed to be done. Man and child held hands as they were left powerless to do anything. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today, let's look at some more magical medicine. This time, surgeries. It is rare to find a fantasy series which isn't wrought with danger. Adventurers such as yourself frequently find yourselves injured. Be it a broken bone, a deep gash, or something much worse, you'll need to deal with them. And one of the more common methods is sadly cutting. Surgeries can be difficult, particularly with the complications. They run a high risk of blood loss. In the medieval era, it is estimated that about half of all those who went through surgery would die during the procedure or afterwards. Even if they survived the surgery, they weren't in the clear. About 80% would suffer from infections. So how long have humans been performing surgeries? Take a guess. 100 years? 500? 1,000? More? Who guessed 31,000 years ago? Yep. Humans have been cutting into each other for a long time. It was performed in modern-day Borneo, where a person's lower left leg was amputated. Judging by the healing and markings along the bones, the person lived about 5 to 10 years more. After that, there was a farmer's left forearm removed 7,000 years ago in France. Surely just chopping a limb off can't be called surgery. I mean, a hack job like this could be done on the battlefield. What about something more complicated? Maybe something like trepanation, or boring a hole into someone's skull to access the dura mater to relieve intracranial pressure. This is a common practice after severe head injuries. There are even some cases going back to the Neolithic era. Yeah, this isn't a new trick. As for broken bones, well, that is pretty common with many methods. The Aztecs were even known to perform a variation of an internal fixator using a branch inserted into the bone marrow. A modern internal fixator involves using screws and plates to hold bone fragments in place. Theirs didn't involve screws, but tying ropes and wrappings around the arm. What about anesthesia, blocking pain? Well, it's hard to find out who tried it first. We have the writings from ancient China, India, Sumeria, Egypt, and Babylon. Yep, everyone has tried it. Pain has made most surgeries difficult. Multiple cultures have basic forms of anesthesia and sedatives. Some used include opium and mandrake. Now, mandrake can be poisonous, and this is important. Many herbs that are used for pain are neurotoxins. They work to block nerve responses, thus preventing pain. Why is that so important? Well, try doing a game of Operation, but the table is moving. I'd bet you get a few buzzers. Yeah, knocking out a person makes life much easier for a surgeon. After that, you need the tools. Those are easy to make. You don't need blacksmiths to make early medical tools. Cactus needles and fish or bird bones have been used to make sewing needles. Things like saws and forceps are a bit more complex, but still easy, particularly with blacksmiths. Nothing that a fantasy setting couldn't create. Among those tools you'll need is those for bloodletting. It has been found in Mayan, Egyptian, Greek, and Aztec, among others. Sometimes it was done with needles and knives, but others use leeches. And guess what? It is still practiced today. Admittedly, this is done in different ways today. It can help with cholesterol, reduce damage to liver and pancreas, and helps with heart issues. Usually, this will be done with blood donations. How does all of that tell us about surgeries in a fantasy setting? Again, this will depend on how the world's magic system actually works. So there are some variations. Well, healing potions and healing spells can help prevent the blood loss and infections. That right there is drastically lowering the risk of death associated with surgeries. Anesthesia and sedatives are basically just alchemy, are they not? Yep, so there should be no problem. But what about the surgeries themselves? Could they be performed? And here we have some issues. Scientific advancements are the result of overcoming obstacles, but healing magic may work against us. It will depend on how healing magic works, and when they learned it. If it is given by the gods, with no need to learn anatomy, it'll be an issue. How will they know and understand the organs if they have never studied the anatomy? Well then, surgeries will be dangerous again. People won't understand the complicated nature of the living body. They won't learn about the need for infection prevention. But if healing magic requires some understanding, that will lower the risk of surgery. But not all. When there is an injury, you will need to remove any foreign material, say a fragment of an arrow or a stone. If those are not removed, they will cause infections. But worse, they could create an abscess. This can lead to inflammation, problems with some organ systems, and create sepsis. Nothing good. So you can't just go in and start healing wounds. No, you'll need to do the prep work. You'll need to go in with the 4 steps and remove all the debris you can find. This means that you'll have to contend with blood loss while you work. This means you may need 2 people at least for surgery. But what if it is more complicated? Say impalement, a spear to the gut. What do you do then? That is going to lengthen the procedure extensively. It'll require fully removing the spear. You'll need to keep the healing going the whole time. This means that healers and physicians will need endurance with their healing magic. I think the best option would be a long-lasting heal over time spell. That would help prevent blood loss and death while not impeding the procedure. What about childbirth? The infant gets stuck in the birth canal. This could mean a C-section. Now you got 2 lives to take care of. The addition of the midwife will be important. Historically, C-sections were only performed when the mother's death was guaranteed. There was a large amount of blood loss, and her intestines will need to be moved to access the uterus and the baby. The most common belief is that the name comes from the child of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, a son named Caesarion, but that is in question. But there are reports of it having been performed around the world going back even further. Now, a fantasy world could make this more complicated but safer. It could even save the mother's life. The child's life is a bit more complicated though. The child mortality rate was high with so many cases that there are whole books on them. The highest issue was infection. If there is a way to handle that, the child's survival will also increase. What about a broken bone? If you cast a healing spell, do the bones just knit together wherever they are? What if they are dislocated, one twisted about? Would the healing spell reset it? If not, you'll need to do it. This means finding out where the bones are. You can feel them with your fingers. Not the best option. An X-ray vision spell would be better. Cancer could be an issue to treat. Would they be able to find it? Cancer isn't a foreign substance, but cancer is gluttonous and will absorb a large amount of nutrients. This could also appear in how magic flows about. So they may be able to find it that way. Yet it will probably be more complicated to treat. Now, we can thank the ancient Egyptians again for their medical records. In 3000 BC, they were able to detect breast cancer and treat it by cauterization or burning. Not pleasant, but works. Cutting is thankfully more common nowadays and safer. Burning causes a lot of pain and nerve damage. Let's go back to the oldest surgeries, amputation. Probably the most common injury an adventurer may suffer is amputation. Having a limb ripped off by a giant, bitten off by a dragon, or mangled terribly by a foe's weapon. All are terrible. There is a difference in how they are done today versus way back then. Today, the limb is shaped to accept prosthetics. There is also a section of skin folded over to speed up healing and provide muscle attachments. Not as much in the past. Amputations were, to put it bluntly, a hack job, done quickly to save lives in dire situations. During the American Civil War, so many amputations were done quickly, and the limbs were just chucked in the river. So many injured soldiers after the battle. Sorted through triage and luck. Most would die afterwards due to infections. Again, antiseptic would be a game changer. Now modern amputations are done so that there is a skin flap which can be pulled over to create a cover for the residual limb. But when done in a hurry with the extensive tissue damage, that isn't always an option. The limb would just be chopped off with an axe and then sealed by cauterization. Incredibly painful. This led to a much more complicated healing process. Depending on the specifics of how healing magic works, it may not matter which form of surgery is performed, but could result in more scar tissue if there was no skin and muscle flap preserved. So judging by ancient medical records, a fantasy setting could do a fair bit of surgery with a higher chance of survival, but that would have implications on the world building. How common is healing magic is the first issue. Is it limited to only clerics and druids, or can others learn it? This is a major issue. It means that the churches and temples would have a monopoly on healing. They could charge for healing and treatment of wounds. It could resort in every village needing a priest or designated healer stationed there. This system is immediately under the risk of exploitation and corruption. It also means that traditional physicians and doctors would still exist due to the exclusiveness of healing spells. But if the spells aren't so niche, but require medical knowledge to safely work, you'd see the church lose some power as physicians grow in prominence. Again, each village would need its own healer. Now both of these options have issues for adventurers such as yourself. Having a party healer becomes more difficult to get. If healers are in short supply, can a village offer up theirs to go travel with you as you delve into dangerous dungeons, run afoul of fierce foes, and the other usual misadventures which those in your profession often find themselves in? Probably not. You would be forced to rely on healing potions for injuries, but major ones will quickly become fatal. You would need to know basic first aid. Sadly, this will increase the danger to adventurers, thus promote a higher pay rate, higher risk, higher reward. This would create pressure, which in turn would lead to spreading of the healing arts. In time, it should become more common. If it is something that everyone can learn, well, everyone is going to learn it. But how many healers would you need? One main healer and a backup. Sooner or later, your main healer will get hurt, and your backup will be called in. Now, field surgeries are dangerous, but you'll need to be ready to step up. While you work, having a guard set out if you aren't in a safe area. Overall, the idea of surgeries on the road is dangerous, and is something best avoided at all costs. You want to be careful and prepared. Bring enough potions. Adam and his father stood by and watched. The physician worked quickly, weaving spells and medicine in the procedure. A cry broke out as he lifted a baby from the mother. He didn't have time to breathe. Immediately, he went back to his work. Before the day was through, both his mother and new sister were well and recovering. Tired, but well. Surgeries were dangerous in medieval times, but the risk seems to go down in the fantasy setting. But not all, and there are many things to pay attention to. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time for Sleipnir. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.